Hello, good morning, students. Today I will take the next part of the text as we have taken a day before. The topic is on educational reform. How does the writer advocate the form of reform in education? How does he consider that master subjects should be introduced in the schools or colleges? He gives the name of master subject as fruit. The essay is written in the ironical tone, and there are so many forms of fraud which are necessary in this modern age in order to get success. I read the next part of the text. Everyone will admit that the swindling of one's fellow beings is a necessary practice. Upon it is based all really sound commercial success, and through it men arrive at those solid positions which command the honor and respect of our contemporaries. Thus, the chief way of making money is by buying cheap and selling dear, or rather by buying cheap and selling dear quickly. But when you buy cheap, you only do so by taking in the vendor, and when you sell dear, the purchaser, your action may be remote and indirect, as when you gamble upon the stock exchange. The writer says that it depends upon our capacity to swindling or to make cheating in the bargaining or purchasing or selling. But it is necessarily an exercise in overreaching. It is of its very nature getting some other human being into a state of mind in which he underestimates what you desire to get out of him or overestimates what you desire to unload upon him. Thus, in my own poor trade, I am a good businessman if I can persuade some unhappy publisher or newspaper owner that the public is athirst for my words, a thirst for my words. Conversely, my honorable employers and masters will be good business men if they persuade me that no one is so base as to want to hear me at all. And that I am only employed as a sort of charity. And so it is with the selling of a boat or a house or with the buying of land. So it depends on the persuasion by other people. Another master gate to fortune is abuse of confidence. You persuade men to entrust you with money for one purpose and then use it secretly for a very different end. If you bring off the deal, it's your gain. If you drop the money, the loss is theirs. Another royal road is merger, another false description, another straightforward theft. All these responses sound talent in fraud in general, so it's all in forms of fortune getting, save in the highly specialized craft or mystery of blackmail. Upon cheating, all honor and therefore all happiness depends. It's wealth so mad, we say, for those who inherit wealth and who are securely tied up as well, determines the position of a man today among the pharaohs. The meaning of the writer is to say that we want to get success, but it depends on the capacity, depends on the methods how we get. Well, what practice is there of this great truth in the curriculum of our schools? It is entirely neglected. I admit pomposity, that pomposity which is a necessary element in all success is indirectly taught. I admit still more freely and fully that the spirit of falsehood is taught as a sort of general subject. But I maintain that swindling as a particular subject is not at all, and even the most elementary forms of it with which every boy ought to be acquainted in his early teens come upon him with a shock when he is already a young married man launched in life and the purchase goes battling with the world. The writer says that directly this is not taught at schools, but indirectly it's taught because it is the primary thing to get success. This, I say, is a shameful neglect. Here is an instance. The most elementary form of swindling for that which it were the gambit of every operation, and that which is the sum total of all. The simpler operations of commerce consisting in giving verbal assurance which it is intended to repudiate later by documents or action, you promise a man something which you don't intend to perform. You give a false description which reality will later expose, or in some other way you use the psychology of affirmation to your advantage. The writer says that it is the method of commerce trade to get success. Well, what could be simpler than to have a class, even if it were but in half an hour, where all boys over a certain age could be trained by examples, both to be upon their guard and the false affirmation of others. What is most important to make false but plausible affirmations themselves with all the boldness which breeds success to make affirmation particular, affirmations emphatic, affirmation probable, affirmation flattering. The writer wants to say that half an hour time or period of class should be there so that the people can be aware of the facts. Even the negative side of this very necessary piece of training is omitted. Boys are not taught, at least in any school with which I have acquaintance, the importance of economy falsehood. Falsehood. Falsehood is also a form of getting success. The immature mind will of course tend to falsehood as a natural human instinct. In this paragraph, the writer says that mature people do not make or lies. Tell lies because it is immature mind which tend to be falsehood. Young men go out into the world by lying freely about the grandeur of their acquaintance, their personal prowess, and the rest all matters, conducting conducing in no way to the accumulation of wealth which is the end of man. Now what could be simpler than in such a class as I suggest? I admit that half an hour a week is rather short common. But everything must have a beginning. What could be simpler than to give some directions, at least to this pseudological factor in the mind and train it to the right end? Examples should be set before the youth. Let the make must recite some braggart story of strength or skill such as common among the young of the rich. Then let him show what a wastage of energy it is. How an actual equal amount of pseudological force expended in a useful channel. A false description or a flattery might have earned pound hundred. It is just easy. The writer says that flattery, falsehood, these things are methods or ways to get success in business. To brag about a horse that you want to sell as about say your horsemanship for which there is no market. It's just as easy to lie about the value of something you have for sale as it is to lie about your lineage. But in the first case you trouser the dips, while in the second there is a stuff in the is wasted effort. Remember, therefore, my dear friends, to check yourselves when you are about to tell an uneconomical falsehood. Count 10 before you speak and consider when there be not ready to your some subject in which you can fully satisfy the natural instinct of lying and the same time prepare some advantage for your pocket. The writer wants to say that if you want to sell something, you lie about its value, but it's a falsehood just like to tell about your lineage. It may be objected that the if this very necessary reform were introduced and the elements of modern commerce were taught in all our schools, the result would cancel out. For since all our youth would be forearmed, there would be still waged in the great world outside the conflict of the better sharper against the worse, with a victory as now to the master thief. But such an objection applies to all forms of learning. My desire is to raise the general level of our gentry in this department, and especially not to leave the man in the middle age with the better memory or lost opportunities. Opportunities lost there through no personal fault but through the neglect of those who had a secret trust and who didn't fulfill it. At least let the man of 50 be able to say to himself, I had every advantage. My masters at school, and no one more than my dear old headmaster Dr. Buggins repeatedly warned me against the peril of honesty and were at pains to teach me how to overreach the innocent. If I have proved clumsy and I am now living as a and author is in his as a publisher's sake, the fault is with me. As things now are, many a man who has sung to be a proofreader or even an author is in his heart bitterly reproaching those who launched him upon the world quite ignorant of affairs. The writer says that in his school time he was very influenced by Mr. Dr. Buggins, who told him about the dangers of honesty. Pure honesty is also dangerous because it does not give success to the man partially. I conceive that the educationist who is ever eager to improve his changing science will here suggest particular subjects in this new department. He will see an expanding horizon of opportunity. My words have roused enthusiasm in him. He will ask me, for instance, who I have not included special classes in blackmail, monopoly, bullying, bribery, perjury, and so forth. These last four words, blackmail, monopoly, bullying, bribery, perjury, these are forms of fraud which way which show the way to get success indirectly. Yes, certainly all these should have their place, especially for older boys, but they may well be considered later. Perhaps some subjects would best be left to special institutions, such as those who were too so successful in the last generation under the name of grammars, blackmail in particular, very like the art of outflanking in military service, requires a judgment of the word to which the mind can hardly attain till it's mature. Napoleon said, beware when you attempt to outflank that you be not be outflanked yourself. A sound saying for anyone in process of edging round his opponent extends his own communications and leaves an opportunity for the opponent to edge around him. And this is with the blackmail. Too often with the blackmailer just in the act of seizing his prize, more post in the Ministry of War not Sir and discovers to his horror that the tables are turned. So the students in these lines you have seen how the writer trying to say in a word the teaching of this art of blackmail is the teaching of very difficult and skillful complex action and which must be attempted rashly, and that is why I have some hesitation in recommending it for the ordinary curriculum of schools. Nevertheless, the very rudiments of it or narrate some idea of what it is might profitably be given even to the younger boys, and for this purpose I would suggest a visit to some neighboring aquarium where the slow antics of the crab in his tank so graphically mimic our public life. The attention of the lads could be directed by their master to the alternate furtive movements of two crabs. They will observe how the first pursues the second sideways across the tank and makes a clutch with his claw, how the second eludes this end in this turn chases his opponent off. This grotesque maneuver, my dear boys, the pastor will declaim, may remain in your minds as an example of what later you will be called upon to do if you are called to serve your country in parliament. The youngest will soon forget all about it as the fashion of the boys with their lessons, but something I think will remain in the mind, though half obscured by time, and when they come to the vast affairs of which Westminster is the theatre, the object lesson of the two crabs will not be without service to them. Bribery, I take it, should be not be taught except in the point of degree, for it comes naturally enough to all men both to give and to take bribes. And all that you need fixed in the young minds is the double importance of avoiding avarice upon the one side and lavishness upon the other. For the taking of the bribe taking of the bribe or no art or training whatsoever is required, but in the giving of bribes it's of very some importance not to give too much and of absolutely vital importance not to offer too little. It's upon this last point that many a noble career has made shipwreck. I have in mind one poor fellow whose father had left him a few millions. He was perpetually getting down with all manner of agitation, some just insufficient to purchase the object of his desire. In the long run, he had dispatched what should easily have commanded a high administrative position in the cabinet, a viceroyalty or first class embassy, yet he had nothing to show for it all but one private secretaryship, two chairmanship of committee, and a baronetcy. This last only because he was childless. The writer wants to say that the episode of Two Crabs, the story of the person had the same thing that had spoiled their career. So fraud subject should not be taught exactly. It gives although a way to success, but it's not proper. Thanks, students. You have listened me carefully. Thank you very much.